we have a quorum, so we'll just go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting in order. If we could please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we have one item on our agenda for this special meeting. It is an action item for the public consulting group. I'll go ahead and make the motion. So the board approves the superintendent to extend a sole source contract to public consulting group for project management for the purposes of implementing the special education review recommendations not to exceed $200,000. Is there a second? Second from Dr. Jones, discussion.
Following up from the board discussion the other night, we did look at the different ways that we could perhaps fund this extension for PCG. As a reminder, the initial study was funded out of capital, so that wasn't an area where we could be looking to make this happen fast. So we, after looking at it, we do want to utilize ESSER 3 or AARP funding, which is absolutely an appropriate expense because it's really all about transformation, and we really want to transform our special education program by getting everything implemented. And as a reminder, this $200,000 doesn't necessarily mean it all has to be spent in the first year because ESSER funding, we have 3 years to spend those funds. So we will, do whatever work we need to do to continue moving this forward. I did have obviously a long conversation with PCG yesterday because I didn't want us to take action on extending the work without having a discussion with them that they want to do the work. They're very excited to do the work, and they actually feel that we will have access to an even broader team across the country. They have specialists in everything from unique programming to some of the other areas that have been recommended. They also do a professional development segment. So I think we've got a really great supportive team at PCG to be able to get these recommendations moving forward very quickly. And just as a reminder, we do still have 6 hours on our existing contract with them.
I guess one of the questions I was going to have for you, if we were going to be using existing funds, is this work was actually contemplated to start after the end of this budgetary year, but I think we solved that problem.
Right.
And if you sign this extension, basically this would give you access to them for the foreseeable future until the work is done. So it's not just everything in year one.
Absolutely.
Usually we can only sign a 1-year contract. So
right.
That's actually helpful. All right, Mr. Sheriff, see your hand.
I like this and I read the thing, but we can't do this. We're going to be violating our own procurement rules and the procurement rules of the town of Greenwich with this motion. I thought the motion was really clear from the discussion the other day that we need to be able to have a change order to extend the current contract. The current contract has a very specific scope to it. I think we should absolutely be allocating money to have a change order that is having PCG elaborate their recommendations, because that was in the scope. I went back and read the scope. There are a series of retreats. The retreat we have not done, they have not delivered that yet. They call for one retreat. I think we need multiples. And the other one that's within the scope is we could ask them for a framework of a roadmap for a plan into the future. But project management services and implementation is actually a separate scope, and we have to put that out to bid. Now, I would hope that PCG would be successful in bidding on that business, but we can't just out of the blue, I'm not comfortable out of the blue awarding a sole source contract with a completely new and different scope. That's not what we talked about the other night. And that's what this motion, is.
All right, Dr. Jones, I'm going to let you respond because I knew you and Mr. O'Keefe had actually looked into this.
Yeah, we did look into this. We did check with procurement. Sean also checked with the town. So they're aware of what we're doing in the finance office. It is a sole source because this company has spent a year-long effort studying our district and has very unique knowledge that we would have to bring in another company to start all over again. And so this is a very appropriate way for us to move forward with BCG.
Ms. Downey, I see your hand.
I just had a question about the funding, because I thought we were talking about using funds that are leftover operating funds from the current year rather than using ESSER funds. And maybe it's all kind of funny money, but I thought that was part of our discussion the other night. So if you could just kind of explain what the rationale is so I understand it.
Yeah, Sean and I actually met right after that meeting the other night, just to kind of chat about it and then followed up the next day. But we were not comfortable using end of year funds for a service that would start after July 1. That would not be an appropriate use for a service coming out of this year's budget.
The other
Yeah,
part
I don't think
the original money, the original money for this work was a capital appropriation. It was not an operating appropriation. So you just have to remember that the original source, BET chose that decision so that the money was locked in for this work. And Dr. Jones had to step up.
No, thank you. That explains it. I mean, I'm okay. I mean, yes, it's not like it's going to materially change anything else in our ESSER funding because we have so much of it. So I'm fine with that.
Other discussion, Mr. Sherrick.
My understanding is the policy over at the BT has now changed, not the policy, the implementation of their policy. They did not previously allow encumbrances year to year, but they're now allowing encumbrances year to year. So I think we're a little behind the curve here on the ability to use leftover funds from this year. I would not want to be using funds. We're about to return $1 million to the town, according to Sean's projection. I absolutely don't want to be returning that. I think you guys need to get that out of this year's funds because you're operating on this encumbrance thing that somebody needs to speak again to the controller.
Well, so the way the motion is worded is we're authorizing the superintendent to do this up to an amount. It doesn't actually specify the source of the amount, so that it's still through the end of this fiscal year. Work with the finance department, and if it's deemed appropriate, they could use current year funding to do that. And we're not locking them in by doing this motion. So, and Sean is in the room and obviously take that on.
Right, sounds like you were trying to do the responsible thing, actually return money, because you felt since you were applying money in a different year that it was appropriate to then utilize that budget, or in this case, use ESSER funding, which this is transformative, so I get your rationale.
Yep.
But you're right, Peter, the motion gives us flexibility.
Yes, the motion gives the flexibility. We're not dictating where it comes from. We're just telling you to go do it. So, all right, is there any further discussion? Because I know we're going to lose Ms. Kowalski in a minute, so Ms. Hirsch.
The quick question I have is, when we have this discussion with them as to moving forward, obviously, I knew Mr. Sherrick raised a point of concern in regards to having them carry out the work. We were looking to have them help us with the framework of planning because our own special education team is actually going to have to do implementation work. We're not going to happen here for the next 5 years. Is that correct?
When you say implementation work, you're talking about actually putting in the changes. I see them as a huge support in the project management role in that, and I'll just give an example. Let's say we decide one of the areas was unique programming for children who have unique needs and they want to have a professional development. They want to figure out how that programming would look. PCG would be at the table with us and with staff. So it all depends on what type of work you're talking about. If it's something like the policies, or they're going to go through the red book and they want to help make sure that that's really where it needs to be, they may be at the table with us on that, and they may do part of that for us if they have a skill set that maybe we don't have somebody on staff to do.
I mean, it's just hard. I started to read the 168-page document, and there's a lot in there. So that's why I was saying, if we are doing this moving forward, to give them that opportunity, because we had asked them months ago to provide us with what that fee would cost to help with some of the implementation framework. I just would like to make sure that once we go through that we can really, we're authorizing funding to do this, but we can then further disseminate what we're going to give ownership of to them. If they're running professional development, things like that, I think a lot of just you've looked at other districts and compared it to other programs. We haven't had an opportunity to really have this discussion yet. So that's why I'm hoping that we'll have an opportunity before we enter into decisions exactly. I mean, I'm happy to do this with them. I think that they're the right people, our discussion on which team to use, but making sure that we know what ownership they're going to have over different parts.
Yeah, I think it would look similar to, and I think it's gonna grow. I don't think we're gonna, right out of the gate between now and August, we're gonna have a solid plan for the next 3 years. I think we have a lot of meetings and discussion that has to take place. But if you think back to the work plan that I usually do in the fall, and out beside that, I say when things are supposed to be completed and who's responsible for it. And I think this is gonna be a lot like that. There are gonna be some elements where we're gonna really need PCG's help, and some elements where they're gonna meet with Stacy or Dr. H and help make sure that what we're implementing is going in the correct direction. But then we may not need to be at every meeting for us to do that.
No, it provides that level of transparency, which I think is exceptionally important, having, you know, an outside source who has access to hundreds of other districts, knowledge of what happens elsewhere to help.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure that we move forward so that we do have that level of transparency. Once we go through the document, we know who's taking ownership of which section. Some of it really does need to be us.
Yes, I know, Ms. Kowalski.
So I just want confirmation. So we've checked with the town, and this way is the appropriate way. So this does not run afoul of any procurement issues, and that and that we've done this from a proper procedural standpoint, because I don't want this to come back and bite us later.
It's absolutely correct process to do this.
Okay,
We have no issues at all.
okay,
In fact, it's very appropriate to do this, given the circumstance.
got it. Okay,
Dave Klein was joined, so she was just asking me if you could repeat the motion.
All right, so yeah, I don't see any other hands for discussion, so let me just repeat the motion. That we approve the superintendent to extend a sole source contract with public consulting group for project management for the purposes of implementing a special education review recommendations not to exceed $200,000. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a roll call vote. Bernstein is a yes. Hirsch,
Yes.
Stowe,
Yes.
Cher, oh, you moved orders on me. All right, stop moving around the street.
I'm a no.
Okay, Cher's a no. Kowalski,
yes.
Francis? Gaetan, are you there?
She's muted.
You're muted, Gaetan. She's on the phone, I don't know how we phone her unmute. So I'll turn to Mr. Kelly.
I'll say yes.
Ms. Downey,
Yes,
Michael, is there a way to unmute Gaetan's line?
She's texting me back.
Something like pound, something.
Can she raise it? Oh, she's on the phone. She's not, raise her hand.
I can only answer.
Or maybe you can dial her, maybe you can just dial her direct.
You know her number?
I do. In fact, she just said yes. But I think we
I
need
know, we
to-
need, yeah, we're gonna need your voice flute. So Michael's gonna dial you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Peter, can I drop?
Yes, we've got your vote. Thank you very much for
Thanks.
squeezing us in.
Thank you.
Hi, you've reached Jason Francis.
All right, Gaetan, you may need to drop from the Zoom in order to pick up. We're dialing you directly so that we can capture your vote.
All right.
We can't seem to get you unmuted. Hang on, maybe I can just look at how to unmute in Zoom. I think you can hit *9, Gaetan. Can you do Sorry, it might be *6 or *9. Anyway, Ms. Francis, how do you vote on the motion? Dr. Francis, sorry?
Yes, my answer.
You're a yes, thank you. All right, so that passes 7-1. Thank you very much. We appreciate you sticking with us. All right, Mr. Kelly, got a motion?
You have a motion?
Wonderful day for golf, and I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll second that motion, get along and straight. Bernstein is a yes. Hirsch,
Yes.
Stowe,
Yes.
Downey,
yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Francis,
Yeah.
Cher, and Kowalski absent. All right, that
Thanks.
passes 6-0. Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye. Thank you.